So Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump both agree on policy, but they should be really careful. There may be unintended consequences of this policy that could hurt the very people that they're trying to protect. So Bernie posted today that he is looking forward to working with the Trump administration on fulfilling his promise to cap credit card interest rates at 10%. Now, this led some folks on X to think at least one step ahead, but I think you need to go a second step ahead, suggesting that the intended effect of this policy, which is lowering everyone's credit card interest rate to 10%, means that only the people with good credit scores are going to be able to get a credit card. And this is exactly what's going to happen. If you're going to cap interest rates at 10%, well, you can't force the banks to give loans to everybody. They're just going to stop giving credit cards to the people with the worst credit scores. Now, while that person on X actually thought that this could be a good thing for these low-income borrowers or the borrowers with bad credit scores, from my research during my dissertation, it could actually have really bad consequences. So back in 2010, there was something called the CARD Act, which restricted credit card access to under 21-year-old individuals. So if you were under 21, you could not get a new credit card. But a lot of people who were well-to-do were able to skirt these rules. And I found evidence that low-income households or people who lived in lower-income communities around the time of the CARD Act were much more likely to use alternative financing. And these are like really bad places like payday loans and pawn shops to get money. Now, the CARD Act, of course, was at a time just coming out of the Great Recession. And so there could have been something going on there as well, which would cause an increase in the pawn shops and payday lending. But during my research, I dealt with that timing a little bit. And theoretically, it makes sense. You know, a lot of these folks, if they have bad credit, it's because they're not really great with their spending habits anyway. They're not necessarily going to stop spending just because maybe they can't get a credit card. They're just going to find alternative ways of getting financing. And this is how people get caught up in scams, and they get caught up in really bad deals, such as using things like payday lending. And I get the policy here, and it's interesting, it's bipartisan. It just, when it comes to policy and it comes to restricting access to things or capping how much private companies can charge, you just really need to be concerned about what are going to be the unintended consequences of these policies, what individuals are going to get shut out of these markets now for these consumer goods, and what's going to happen in the cases that they do get shut out. And here, it's not that much of a stretch to think that these low credit score borrowers are going to seek out even worse financing options.